Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As we mentioned earlier, we'll be talking about the latest touristic events here in Egypt and around the world, and how can Egypt attract more tourists. Now, to brief it to you, the World Tourism Day is celebrated on September 27th of each year, and the purpose of the celebration is to increase the awareness of international community of the importance of tourism and its social, cultural, political and economic value. This would be one of the topics we're going to discuss today. Also, we'll be discussing the renovation of Mardani Mosque as Dr. Khalid Al-Anani, Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, and also Dr. Mukhtar Goma, Minister of Waqf, and Major General Khalid Abdul, Governor of Cairo, inaugurated the first phase of the restoration project of Al-Tabaghna Al-Mardani Mosque on Bab al-Wazir Street in El Darb Al-Ahmar region here in Cairo. And also, another main issue that we will be discussing today is, of course, the Dubai Expo 2021, as it is a World Expo hosted by Dubai in the United Arab Emirates from the 1st of October 2021 to the 31st of March 2022. Originally scheduled for the 20th of October 2020 to the 10th of April 2021, but of course due to the pandemic it has been postponed. And the Expo has the theme called Connecting Minds, Creating the Future. Egypt has a special pavilion in this Expo, and we'll be also discussing this with our guest this morning, Dr. Yehia Abdul, Tourism Counselor. Good morning to you, Dr. Yehia. Always a pleasure having you with us here on the Breakfast Show.
Thank you so much.
Let's start with the Dubai Expo and its impact on regional travel and also Egypt's pavilion in the Expo.
Well, really, the Dubai Expo 2020, is the latest, in a series that started in 1851 in London. And it was followed by the Paris, where the Eiffel Tower was, constructed. And then it moved to New York, Chicago, Brussels, worldwide. So there's a big difference between the current one and the former ones. The former ones were relying heavily on developing some kind of structure, innovation. But for the first time, we have 192 countries worldwide. Nearly this is the whole, countries in the planet. So this is a great record for Dubai and the United Arab Emirates government and the Arab world. The theme this year, as you mentioned, connecting minds and an outlook for posterity. This is one element. Again, it's upgrading and motivating for creativity, innovation, connectivity. And the whole, pavilions has been, took some of the German, the US, the Japanese, the Chinese, 5-6 years to set up, and because they are a hub, for technology, innovation, investment, business, education, creativity. And 20% of these 192 pavilions is going to be permanent, locations for the government to promote education, energy, climate awareness, environment. So this is the major difference between the current one and the former ones. Concerning travel, we expect over 25 million visitors, inshallah, within the span of 6 months. And, what interests us in Egypt, travelers will be flying from, Japan, Australia, Brazil, which is about 15 hours flight. So I look forward that the Ministry of Tourism, would make plans with the, authorities and the tour operators associations in Dubai. So because this is a long haul, so if they fly for 3 hours, they're going to be in Egypt. And this is once in a lifetime because, this is a very good chance for them to visit the other, locations and destinations in the region after, they spend 4 or 5 days in Dubai and Emirates.
Especially after visiting Egypt's pavilion in
Exactly.
in the Dubai Expo.
Yeah, well, the Egyptian pavilion really is so sophisticated. We receive 5,000 visitors per day. And Minister of Economy and then Trade, she announced that there's going to be 100 events carried out through the 6-month period. And it's very fascinating because it displays, and reflects the latest development in Egypt in health, education,
Yes.
real estate, power, energy, investment.
Repositioning Egypt, not only touristically, but also on all levels.
Exactly. Well, it's not, it's like a pavilion, you know, like to reflect the development in each nation.
Yes.
So ours, you know, like among it is antiquities and tourism and promoting the Egyptian resorts, but it's going to promote like investment, education, trade between Egypt and the rest of the world.
Let's talk more about the World Tourism Day and how important it is for Egypt again to reposition itself on the touristic map globally.
Well, it was on the 27th of September, and in Luxor, really, we had a great fiesta and festivals. You know, like young men and women, they were dressed in Pharaonic, and they had music and dance and folklore. So this is one aspect. Again, World Tourism Day is major based on the development and sustainability of tourism, because tourism industry has you know, like positive outcome, and there is some, you know, like negative aspects, you know, like that the excess in using, you know, like the raw materials, the food, excessive water, energy, the leftover, you know, like for the from the catering and food service industry. This is one aspect. Again, there is like some moral issues, you know, like the heritage and the culture, because of the influx of tourists, you know, like in Catalonia and Spain, for example, they say we don't need more tourists. In Venice, you know, like in Italy, they said the same thing, because the country has been like inundated, you know, like with foreign visitors that change, you know, like the atmosphere and attitude of the residents. And third one is that tourism, you know, like the aviation industry, for example, accused, you know, like of having, you know, like toxic emissions, you know, like when flying. So there's a tax that has been imposed on airlines to counter, you know, like this negative aspect from the environment. So every year, tourism industry, you know, like try to balance between, you know, like its positive outcome and the some of the slight, you know, like negative aspects.
Yes. Egypt has been exerting various efforts to, in the past, we have seen, for example, the inauguration of various museums in Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh, renovating some sites, of course, in addition to taking part in international tourism exhibitions. So let's talk more about the renovation aspect and the renovation of Mardani Mosque in Darb al-Ahmar here in Cairo.
Well, really, this is, you know, like a great effort by the Ministry of Tourism Antiquities and the world associations and bodies, you know, like the USA, the European Union, because they allocate budgets, you know, like for the renovation of Old Cairo and Islamic Cairo and Fatimid Cairo. So this unique mosque, you know, like belongs to the Mamluk era, and they've been working on it for a long time, and it was, you know, like inaugurated, you know, like after the restoration process, 10 days ago. So and President Sisi has advocated so much, you know, like taking care of Old Cairo. And so, like, look at now the aqueduct, you know, like, and Ain Sira, you know, like creating lakes and gardens and recreation areas, moving it from a negative aspect, you know, like to be a blast
That's
to promote
surrounding the Civilization Museum.
Exactly, and the whole Old Cairo, you know, like the Babylon, you know, like fort, you know, like the Sensaj church, you know, like the Amr ibn al-As region, all this plus, you know, like Old Cairo in the process of being renovated to attract, you know, like world tourism as usual.
How would that attract tourists, Dr. Yehia? Because Cairo in particular has a lot to offer, and unfortunately visitors to Cairo come only to see the pyramids. Recently also some museums, of course, the Tahrir Museum and the Baron Palace, but not much attention has been given to Old Cairo, Fatimid Cairo, and Mamluk Cairo, although it's very rich with great history, architectural styles. It has so much to offer.
Yeah. Well, actually, this is due to the, you know, like the package tours, you know, like the tourists when, you know, I was talking to a group, you know, like flying from Indiana, you know, like coming to Egypt, they go on a cruise, this is 5 days, and they come to Cairo for 3 nights again. And, you know, like our problem in Egypt, we have a lot to offer, you know.
Yes.
That's why, but, you know, like at least, you know, like they consider like Khan al-Khalili and Hussein area, This is like old Cairo. We spend like 4 or 5 hours. They have dinner
It's a
and do
souk, it's a
shopping.
market, but they rarely visit Al Mu'azz Street, or they rarely visit
Exactly.
Fatimid Cairo.
But now, like with the upgrading, like of old Cairo, like classic Cairo, Fatimiyad, Ayyubiyad, and like Mamluk Cairo. Now with the project the government is undertaking, there are going to be accessibility. We know like and like some arrangement for the heavily populated area, like to make it accessible, because there's lots of shops, like and bazaars and population living there. So this is damaging, like the background, like of the area and the relics. That's why the government's making a plan. So reallocate, like the population and make it accessible for visitors. They can walk, make it like a pedestrian, like Al Mu'azz, area, Khan al-Khalili. So this is the phase now the government is taking to make it accessible. So as you mentioned, really visitors will have, like more time to spend without, like being, like hauled up in traffic and jams and all this.
Yes, indeed. How do you see the return of British tourists to Egypt?
Well, really, this is a great, like news to hear about. Like they just flew 2 days ago to Sharm el-Sheikh, as well as like Swiss Airlines will be flying directly from Zurich, like to Sharm el-Sheikh and Marsa Alam as well. So like the whole world has been held up for like a year and a half. So thank God, like with the immunization and vaccination, like of nearly a large number of world population, some being vaccinated twice and 3 times, and the energy and efforts of the Ministry of Tourism for the Egyptian resort, Luxor, Aswan, and the cruises, that made Egypt, like accessible haven for visitors. That's why Britain now recognized vaccination in Egypt to be safe, like for travelers to the UK, and as well, like we're starting having visitors from Germany, from Switzerland, from Belgium. Apart from like nearly like 30, 40 flights from Moscow and St. Petersburg directly to Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada.
What about Romanian tourists coming back to Luxor?
Well, really this is good news, because like Central Europe, like Croatia, Serbia and Romania, they having now direct flights to Luxor, as well as in the summer they were used to fly to Marsa Matruh. So this is to diversify, exactly, and we have again to Marsa Matruh visitors from Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan.
Okay.
So this shows like the diversity of Egyptian resorts and how we can attract, like a lot of visitors.
And different segments of tourists as well, various segments of tourists.
Exactly, and thank God, like with the preparation of the government and the road shows, and currently now we have a new director for the Egyptian Tourism Board. He's a professional, like in media and advertising and promotion. So we expect really more developments and more inflows of international travel.
Yes. Dr. Yehia, would you talk to us more about the Stockholm Index of richest countries in history?
Well, really, this is excellent news for Egypt. Always, like we have good news on a weekly basis. 2 weeks ago, like the Stockholm Index, like is ranking the richest countries worldwide in history. And Egypt has been like picked, selected as #1, followed by Italy, Greece, China, Spain, and France. So this is great news, like this is something the Ministry of Tourism had to promote, like on a worldwide basis. We didn't have, like anything to do with this issue, but we have been selected by Sweden Stockholm Index, like to show that we are the #1, the richest country in old, like and contemporary history. So we have to work and develop, like and make good ties, like with such associations. Maybe, like to invite them on fam trips, like and tours, and to support them, because still, like we have lots, like to offer. Dr. Anani, like was checking, like on the Rams Avenue that links between Luxor and Karnak Temple. 2 days ago, the Secretary General of the Egyptian Antiquities, they opened in Luxor a museum, a show, look at this place, 747 pieces of gold that ranges from Pharaonic to Greek to Roman to Islamic era. So this is, like around the clock we have exhibitions and we have excavations. And in November next month we're going to be having a show, Kings of Egypt, like in Houston, Texas.
Okay, interesting.
Exactly, and it's going to move to like at least like 6 other locations as well.
Sports. How far can sports play a role in promoting tourism here in Egypt, especially that we have so many big names now in sports, attracting the attention of the whole world?
Exactly, like sports really, and I remember that at one point, like countries were competing, like to hold Olympics, Winter Olympics, like athletic events like tennis, soccer, and all of these, because, like an athletic or sports event would generate like $3-4 billion, because, like of influx, like of tours, of groups, of media and coverage. So thank God we have, like world champions, like in tennis and soccer, and Big Ramy just like won Mr. Olympia like 2 days ago. And like we have athletes, like in karate and in judo, worldwide in major fields. So really this is one thing that we have to invest, because as they say, Egypt, like about 60% of the population is young, like. So really we have to invest in the young men and women. When we started schools 2 days ago. I mean, like sports should be an integral part of the curriculum as curriculums worldwide are developed, because they are energetic, and when they pick up sports, like and practiced, in a very short time they become athletes and they get us gold medals, inshallah.
Definitely. I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Yehia Qader, Tourism Counselor. Thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this segment of The Breakfast Show. But yet, much more to come here on the show. Stay tuned.